Okay, number 6, I'm going to start out with my ladder method. I see 17 as a prime number, so I'm not going to start with 2 and 3 and 5 and move on. I'm going to go ahead and start with 17 because I know 17 goes into all three coefficients. So that leaves me with 1 left, minus 3 plus 2. So variable-wise, I've got an x to the third, an x to the fourth, and an x to the fifth. So x to the third is the smallest exponent. So my greatest common factor is going to be 17x to the third. Coefficient-wise, I'm going to have a 1 left over, minus 3, and a plus 2. And then I've got to do my variables. X to the third divided by x to the third is going to leave me the 1. X to the fourth divided by x to the third is going to leave me x. X to the fifth divided by x to the third is going to leave me x squared. And number 6 is factored. Okay, I'm going to move my screen down. Okay. Okay, we're going to have number 8. And I see that I can divide by 5. So I have 2 left over, plus 3, and minus 4. And I'm going to look at my variables, and I do not have any variables in common. So 5 is going to be my greatest common factor, and I have 2a left over, plus 3x left over, minus 4. And number 7 is factored. Number 8, I'm going to do my ladder method. And I see that I can divide both of them by 2. So I get 3 left over, minus 21 left over, and 9 left over. And then I can divide that by 3. And I have 1 left over, negative 7 left over, and 3 left over. And if you can see that 6 is divisible by all of them, you can go ahead and divide out the 6 without having to do each prime number. So that does give me 6 for a greatest common factor. Then I'm going to look at my p's. I have p to the third, p to the second, p to the sixth. So p to the second is the smallest exponent. So that's the smallest exponent they have in common. Then I'm going to look at q to the third, q to the second, q to the fifth, and q to the second is the smallest exponent. So they all have at least a 6, a p squared, and a q squared in common. So now I'm going to divide that out, and again, these are my leftover coefficients, so I do have 1 left over, and I divide my p's, so I get pq left over, minus 7, and those will both cancel out, they'll divide out and equal 1, and then plus 3, I'm going to have p to the fourth, I subtract my exponents, and q to the third. And 6p squared q squared times 1pq minus 7 plus 3p to the fourth q to the third. Okay, number 9. Oh, there it goes. Okay, number 9, I'm going to go ahead and do my ladder method, but this time I could see 30 and 60 are divisible by 30, so I'm just going to go ahead and divide by 30 instead of all of the prime numbers. So that leaves me 1 left over and 2 left over. And then I have 30 in common, so 30 is the greatest common factor. And then I'm going to look at my variables, and I have a to the fourth and a to the seventh, so the fourth is the smallest one. I'm going to look at my b's. There's not a b in this one, so they do not have b in common. And then I'm going to look at my c's, and c is the only one as the smallest exponent they have in common. So I'm going to divide out 30 a to the fourth c. Well, my leftover coefficient is 1, and a to the fourth divided by a to the fourth equals 1. And I'm going to have a b to the fifth, because they didn't have that one in common. And then I'm going to subtract my exponents and get c squared. Plus my leftover coefficient of 2. A to the seventh divided by a to the fourth is a to the third, and c divided by c would equal 1. So I get 30 a to the fourth c times 1b to the fifth c squared plus 2a to the third. Number 10, I'm going to divide that out. And I can see that 16 goes into both of those. So I have 1 left over, and that goes in there 6 times. Okay, so 16 is my greatest common factor for my coefficients, and I'm going to look at my r's. So r to the 7th is the least exponent, so they at least have 7 r's in common. And s's, they have at least 4 s's in common. So I'm going to divide those out, and I get 1 left over, and r to the 7th divided by r to the 7th is 1, so I keep my 1, and I'll have s to the 3rd left over, minus 6, and r to the 8th divided by r to the 7th is r, and my s's will cancel out and equal 1. So I get 16 r to the 7th s to the 4th times 1 s to the 3rd minus 6r. Okay, I'm going to move my screen down. Okay, excuse me. Looking at my coefficients, I have 2 prime numbers, so that means I'm not going to have any numerical coefficients. So I need to move on to my x's and my variables, and x to the 4th is the smallest exponent they have in common. That means they all have at least x to the 4th. So I'm going to divide that out, and I get 7x squared minus 11x plus 14. So that divides out by subtracting the exponents. Number 12. They don't have anything numerically in common, and they don't have anything variably in common, so that means there are no factors. There are no factors for number 12.